What's for lunch? At this school, and more than 400 others, that question has never been more loaded.
Whether or not you believe that the state should provide free lunches, we're paying this company a lot of money.
But just who is set to rake in close to $130 million of lunch money?
They paid a pretty significant dividend.
Actually, there was another contract which wasn't publicised at all.
And who's checking if they measure up?
Scrutiny should be applied.
We're about 5 million meals into a deal that's replaced hundreds of school lunch providers locally with one contract. And at the heart of it, one company, Compass Group, the largest catering company on the planet.
We've all heard about the problems, meals that blow up, don't show up, or don't measure up when they do. The School Lunch Collective has been the public face of that. But really there is just one agreement between the Ministry of Education and Compass Group New Zealand to supply nearly 24 million meals for more than $71 million, though we will come back to that number and to a secret contract that pushes it higher. Everyone else is down the food chain, a subby or a supplier, or in the case of one provider, being swallowed up by Compass Group. School lunches have really only just hit the headlines this year. Cécile Meier has been reporting on the companies behind those headlines for a lot longer.
Yeah, so last year Compass had about 36 schools. This year their contract is for about 450 schools. So they have 12 times more schools this year than they had last year.
Smaller local providers like Lunch with Crunch have been edged off the map by the Compass contract, supposedly costing $3 a meal. Compass Group had plenty of other big government contracts.
Last year it was about $130 million. So last year was before they had this big school lunch contract. So hospital meals, army base. This year, Compass, their contract with government would be about $210 million. Next year, if all schools end up under Compass, the figure will be even higher.
That's because next year Compass will expand, adding primary schools that go up to year 6. If they qualify for lunches now, they get them from smaller providers like Lunch with Crunch. Last year, it had the contract to supply Massey Primary School in Auckland.
But I'd sooner they give us the money, we'll go back to our local suppliers, to the people that did it before.
Now, Compass is cooking.
I hear it might be meatballs today.
I love meatballs. Who doesn't? I hate it. They have been giving us like cold pizza buns that haven't been very good.
Well, who wants to eat frozen buns?
Feeding these kids lunch is priced at almost $300,000 for 190 school days each year if all 522 students show up.
We're getting about 85-86% attendance now, regularly each week.
And what about the uptake on the meals?
About 40% uptake on the meals.
Is it just fussiness?
No, I believe it's not palatable for them.
Yeah.
And they've had a history of bad frozen meals, so that sort of compounds. I don't want that.
The day we visit, the School Lunch Collective delivers on the dot at 10:30 to reception. The school hall and kitchen have been closed for 2 years due to flooding, so heat-proof cartons pile up in the waiting room, mostly meatballs and rice with some halal and veggie options.
Jalapeno vegetable curry. That's not the special, is it?
That's the special.
That's the special. Now, which kids eat jalapeno?
A former student arrives to split them up and deliver to classes, around 15 hours a week that would otherwise fall on a caretaker or other staffer. An extra cost not covered in the contract with Compass Group, though it was part of the previous deal.
Who pays for him?
That money, the government give us money for 2 terms. They've guaranteed 2 terms worth of funding so we could employ someone to do that. What's going to happen after term 2, I've got no idea.
The principal thinks some of these look light, and being a nitpicking journalist, I happen to have a set of scales.
So this is just a little bit of quality control we're doing here. The package weighs 13 grams and the contents are supposed to be 240. That's about 253 grams. We've got some that are coming in 280. Big lunch for you. Not 260, not too bad. 238, which is 15 grams under.
Meals must exceed 240 grams, but 1 in 5 can fail to, and Compass would still meet the minimum standard in the agreement. And how many spot checks for quality or nutrition have education officials done since the new contract began?
Meal assessments for all suppliers are planned to start in Term 2.
Right, so 0 checks so far, though Compass Group Managing Director Paul Harvey says,
the weight of meals is managed through the manufacturing process. We stepped up to help safeguard the program's future. We openly acknowledge there have been challenges. We welcome feedback from students and schools and know that there is still work to be done.
Compass Group had challenges with school lunches before it took over the whole show.
At the height, maybe in 2022, they had about 50 schools, a bit more than 50 schools, 59 schools. But then there were some performance issues. Schools weren't happy with the quality of the food, the quality of the service. The Ministry of Education did some performance reviews with them. And so Compass lost, I think, about a third of the schools that they had by the time, by the end of last year, really.
She found out a key supplier, Lebel, was also reviewed and found lacking last year.
So if I understand this right, so the Ministry of Education knew that they had had serious problems in the year before, reviewed them, found these serious problems, still give them the contract.
Yeah, there's ministry officials who, when they learn that Compass and Lebel are shortlisted to win this contract, they actually sent an email to the person in charge, and they said, look, just so you know, we've told the people in the procurement about all these issues. We're repeating them now to you. This is the amount of schools they lost. This is the quality issues we found. This is the waste percentage they had, which was above the rest of the program. This is, the meals assessments that they failed, all the issues, a litany of issues really that they had. And yet they still were awarded the contract because effectively they were the only ones willing to take it for $3.
But did it? Cécile Meier has exposed a deal. A secret contract the MOE didn't disclose when the agreement was announced with great fanfare at Parliament last year.
$3, that was the headline, that's all we could hear. And then after the contract was awarded, Compass managed to negotiate a separate contract.
The Compass model centralises most of the cooking at the Hamilton plant it's now taking over from Lebel.
But because of the way it's done centrally, they had to have all the same meals. It's like pre-cooked meals that they freeze and then they distribute. They can't afford to do one meal that's 300 grams, one meal that's 240 grams. That's just too complicated.
But previously, high school students got heavier meals than these younger kids, which makes sense. Who hasn't seen a hungry, growing teenager devour more?
They found the solution was everyone gets the same meal at 240 grams, and for the older students, we'll give them 2 extra snacks, and they managed to get an extra 84 cents per student for those snacks.
Boosting the nutritional load of meals for students above Year 8 pushed the cost of those meals very close to the level unsuccessful bidders had offered.
Former suppliers are saying this is not fair because they were told the price is $3, absolutely non-negotiable. And then they learned later, actually, there was another contract, which wasn't publicised at all.
Meals from Peter Pit, Subway and others have turned up covering gaps in supply this term. The contract says that cost falls on Compass Group New Zealand. So is this a good deal? And what sort of shape is Compass in?
They're the largest global food service provider on the planet, and it's a big market, and they're cornering increasingly more and more national markets within that space.
Edward Miller is a researcher with the Centre for International Corporate Tax Accountability and Research. They're an international team of accountants, academics and investigators funded by trade unions in Europe and the Commonwealth. I've asked him to comment on the books for Compass New Zealand.
they reached about $300 million in revenue in 2024. That year, they paid a pretty significant dividend to their UK parent company of about $53 million, which is indicating that they're making sufficient capital that they're comfortable to send a whole chunk back to the UK. And there's public information that tends to indicate that a big chunk, if not the majority of their revenue, comes from public contracts. So that implies that there should be a degree of accountability about the kind of service that they're delivering to consumers.
Despite the performance issues with school lunches and rising food prices and wage costs, Compass Group has a very successful financial track record. Its profits rose 3 times as fast as its revenue in the past decade. So what might that mean?
That might indicate that it's not a particularly competitive market, that there's not other companies that could step in and take that.
Then there are the royalties. Most people understand royalties as money an artist or a musician earns when someone uses a song or a work they've made. Compass also paid its UK parent a $6 million royalty. That's 2% of total earnings, nearly $50 million in total over the past decade. Why do that?
We tax profits at 28%. We tax royalties at a much lower rate under the New Zealand-UK double taxation agreement that we have. They're taxed at 10%, so roughly a third of the rate of taxation as we tax profits. So if you're able to do it, then you are incentivized to potentially code your income that you generate or your revenue when it's coming out the other side as royalties rather than as profits because of that preferential tax treatment.
Ask Compass Group what its royalty payment covers and it'll say that is
commercially sensitive.
Full stop. Back at Massey Primary, the hot takes on today's meatballs are harsh but unverifiable.
Not very good at adhering at 0 out of 10.
Principal Bruce Barnes has put it to his board and the community. Do they cancel the contract or just cut back the orders? Could the school and parents find another way or do they stick with Compass?
Yeah, it's all very well what I think, but if my community wishes to go in another direction, I've got to listen to their voice.
Compass publishes stats. April 1st, they show schools are taking 113,000 meals a day, nearly 12,000 fewer than expected. That looks like a $36,000 hit to revenue every day. Compass invoices the government fortnightly. That bill looks like it might be getting lighter. Hard to know if costs are falling as fast because, as they say, it's
commercially sensitive.
It's a huge company, huge multinational. It's got a lot of backing. So for them, they can easily absorb that sort of event. But still remains to be seen if they can actually deliver for $3.
Well, that's the price for now. Compass says it's involved to ensure tamariki receive nutritious meals every school day. Into the future, with no time limit.
So it's an unusual contract for the public service because it's short and the price can't be reviewed. However, you could expect that if after 2 years they're happy, there's going to be a longer term contract. The data I've got from Health New Zealand for the hospital meal provision, it shows that the amount that Health New Zealand paid Compass between 2022 and 2024 has risen by 24%. That's a big increase. The school lunch contract, this contract is unusual, but it's temporary and it could lead to this very big contract.
There really is no such thing as a free lunch.